who will lay me down. You know, anyone in here struggling with something? I have been for months, just struggling. And no matter what it is that it looks like out there, whatever that is, our relationships, our job, our finances, our health, or whatever it is that it looks like out there, what do we know it's really about? It's really about my struggle right here, right? My struggle within me, my consciousness, what I believe, what I'm living into. And how that shows up for me, the struggle, how I would define that, is that it's the struggle between where I am right now and how my life is showing up right now and what I know I am capable of becoming. The vision that is calling me, the thing that is moving me forward. And between where I am right now and that field of infinite possibility that I know is seeking to emerge as my life, there's a gap. There's a space. There's troubled waters. And sometimes that gap feels like a little hop, skip, and a jump. It's like, oh, ding, here I am, look at me, I'm transformed. Look at me rock. And then other times, that gap literally feels like the Grand Canyon. It feels insurmountable. That the thing that we are being called to become and who it is that we're actually living into right now, it just feels so far away, so distant. And it doesn't feel like I can lay myself down and be that bridge, because I would need a bridge that would stretch from here all the way to the other side of the country. And I just don't feel like Flexi Bendy Girl, right? It just doesn't feel like I can do that for myself. And as I've been sitting with this, I realized something, which is that on some level, I don't want there to be a gap. On some level, I think, or I did think, I'm working through this, that somehow the fact that there was a gap was something wrong. There's a gap, there's something wrong. There shouldn't be a gap. Now let's go back to principle, because that's what we're anchored in this teaching. So if we go back to principle, we know that the divine idea that is expressing through and as everything that there is infinite and limitless. Infinite and limitless. And if I am the expression of that infiniteness and that limitlessness, if that is what is emerging through my life continually, will I ever get there? No. Because there's always more there. There. Now really let that land for a minute. There's always going to be this sense of a gap. It's not true, because we are the fullness of the expression of everything right now, but we experience this sense of a gap. What if I didn't fight the idea that there was even a gap? What if I didn't make myself wrong because I didn't feel as if I was fully living into my potential right now? I am supposed to be the Christ may manifest in every dimension now. Ask my wife, that is not what happens in real time in a real space. It's not. And in this teaching, which I love and literally saved my life, it's very hard for us to sometimes acknowledge that there's a struggle. It's very hard for us to acknowledge that, this is hard. We have a saying in this teaching, which is, it's all good. And I always say that for me, that's like when you walk up to somebody and you go, hey, how's it going? And they're like, it's all good. It's sort of code for everything in my life is falling apart. So we affirm in this teaching, and it's a powerful thing. And at the same time, if we're not willing to acknowledge and live into those spaces that are harder, if we're not willing to live into that space of struggle within ourselves, then we're doing what is called a spiritual bypass. We're bypassing around what makes us uncomfortable. So instead of my actually finding the thing within me that will enable me to realize that what is a Grand Canyon at the moment is literally a hop, skip, and a jump, if I can shift my consciousness, right? Instead of my being caught up in that, I get caught up in the fact that it's a struggle. Oh, it's so bad. And so I try to bypass it, and I'm like, oh yeah, no, it's all good. So I don't actually do the work. I don't actually grow and evolve into the being that truly owns and has dominion over what I'm being asked to become. Is everybody with me so far?
Yeah.
All right. So, the good news, the good news is whatever it is that's out there exists where? In here. It's in my consciousness. If you want to know what you believe, look at your life, because that's what you believe. That's what you are operating from. What you experience in your life is what you believe. So, if I want to change my experience, then I'm being invited to change my consciousness. That's a whole lot easier than trying to change the world out there. And yet, it's also very difficult work at the same time, but it's something we can actually do. We can shift our consciousness. So are you guys ready to be changed in consciousness today?
Yes.
Okay, we love that. We see, we affirm, that's good. So play along with me here. I'd like everyone here to cross your arms as if you're bored or you're waiting for something. Okay, and we all know what that feels like, right? Cross our arms, bored, waiting for something. Okay, now I want you to take your arms down, and I want you to cross them again, but fold them the other way. What was that like?
Weird.
Weird, right? Try it again, because most of us, when we try to do it the first time, we can't actually cross them the other way.
Right.
Yeah.
We can't. You have to really, so what do we have to do in order to be able to do that? This is a little change, right? We're talking about the tiniest change. What is asked of us as we try to make this shift?
Be aware.
Being aware, absolutely, right? It requires more concentration, requires us to actually think about it.
Outside comfort zone.
Isn't it amazing? This is the tiniest thing in the world, and it's totally outside our comfort zone. And what happens when it's outside our comfort zone?
We don't do it.
We don't do it. Oh, I love you, Morency. Thank you. We don't want to do it. It's like, oh no, I'll just go back to the way I've always done it. Because it's so much easier. I don't know about you, but the first time I tried to do that, I literally spent 3 days in the mirror figuring out how to do it. I could do it when I'm looking at myself. Very, very disconcerting for me to try to flip it. And it made me feel like I was 13 years old again, and that I had grown 6 inches in 3 months. And I literally didn't know where the ends of my hands were and where the ends of my feet were. And I was this awkward, gawky mess. My nickname was Big Bird. So that'll tell you something about how I was moving through time and space in my body temple. It brought that back in a heartbeat. I felt awkward, I felt gawky, I felt all of this emotional life got triggered over something. Does it really matter which way we fold our arms? No. Does it? But just even attempting to shift this created a whole onslaught of response mechanisms within me that wants to maintain the status quo. So if this is what happens with something as simple as merely trying to shift the way you fold your arms, imagine what happens within us when we are actually stepping into true transformation in all the areas of our life. How do we hold that? How do we hold that for ourselves? I know for me that I can be very, very hard on myself. Because again, I don't want to embrace the gap. I want to be there. I want to be the thing that I know is possible. So, you guys know I love stories. the story that really has been present for me and awake for me as I've been navigating this Grand Canyon in my own life is the story of Jacob wrestling with the angel. So if you don't remember the story, or if you're not familiar with it, it's from the Hebrew scripture. And just a little backstory on Jacob. Jacob cheats his brother Esau out of his birthright. And he cheats his father out of giving the birthright to Esau. He does some trickery there. And he gets the birthright. But then he can't actually stay there because he got it by trickery. So he has to flee his homeland. And he goes to the neighboring land. And he actually gets married and builds a family. And about 20 years or so into this process, he decides that everything that he's been building up, he's decided that it actually doesn't belong to the chief, it's actually his. And he leaves and he steals it all. Steals all the flocks, steals all the gold, heads out, right, to go settle in another place in the territory. Well, his father-in-law is furious, chases him down, and says, they hide the gold. It's kind of a messy situation. And the father-in-law says to him, look, whatever, keep it, just never cross into my lands again. I'm gonna let you live, I'm gonna let my daughter live, just do not cross into my territory again. So the only territory that then is left for him to go back to is, guess what? His brother Esau's territory, the one whose birthright he stole. And his brother Esau hears that Jacob is coming back. And he's been prospering even though he didn't get the actual birthright. And he sends 400 soldiers to greet his brother. And his brother Jacob is sending out emissaries ahead of him with gold and with offerings. He's sending out messengers, hoping that these messengers will meet Esau, it'll soften Esau's heart, and that potentially a reconciliation will be possible between the two of them. So the story of Jacob wrestling with the angel happens the night before he is going to see his brother. He is all by himself. The soldiers are on their way. He can't go back the way he came before. And as he is there by the roadside, a man comes along and they start wrestling with each other. And what he realizes through the course of the evening, as they wrestle all night long, Jacob realizes that this isn't just any man, that this is an angel. And as dawn arrives, the angel says to him, "Release me." And Jacob says, "Bless me." And the angel takes Jacob, basically hip checks him into the ground, just tosses him down on the ground, and blesses him, and renames him Israel. And then leaves. And then Jacob gets to go meet with his brother, and they are reconciled. Now, in traditional unity teaching, the way that Charles Fillmore has interpreted this idea of Jacob and Esau is that Jacob is our higher spiritual self. Esau is our more human understanding and experience of the world. And that what this story shows is that our spiritual self will never be denied. Our spiritual self will do whatever it needs to do in order to drive the engine that is our life. Which is great and wonderful. I mean, I love that interpretation. Doesn't really get me though. It feels like an idea for me. What I love about this story, so you're gonna get DeeAnn's metaphysical interpretation of this story. What I love about Jacob's story is that he's kind of a mess. And he's not necessarily the nicest person in the world all the time. Kind of sound like me, kind of sound like us, kind of sounds like a human who's moving through the world. And when he gets to this point in the story, he is attempting to reconcile himself. He is attempting to reconcile past actions, present actions, with where he wants his future to be. Does this sound like what I've been talking about? Who we are right now, being called into who we want to become. And that gap that exists within us, that makes us feel that we cannot become that thing. And he wrestles all night with the angel. So who is the angel? What is the angel? Yeah, it's us, right? It's our divine inner self. He is wrestling with his higher self. Do you guys ever feel like you're doing that? I know I do, right? There's a part of me, the knower that knows, and I just don't want to listen. I struggle and I struggle and I struggle. That nocturnal struggle of Jacob with the angel is our struggle with ourselves. And it is that moment of dawn, illumination, light arriving in consciousness. Something in that struggle. How many of you have gotten just so tired of the struggle? And that is where something shifts. So the illumination in that moment of consciousness that Jacob has, the angel says, let me go. Stop struggling. Let me go. And in that moment, which is really kind of weird when you hear it in the story without the metaphysical interpretation, in that moment, Jacob says, bless me. It makes total sense when we understand that it's our inner awareness of our divinity, and the divinity is saying, stop struggling with me. And the way that we stop struggling with ourselves, in that moment that we actually surrender, in that moment that we lay our body down, in that moment, we actually get to claim our dominion. We get to claim our legitimate birthright. He couldn't steal a birthright. He tried. He had to walk through the struggle to claim his birthright and say, bless me. And the angel did. The angel demonstrated how much more powerful it always is. Just sort of we've been wrestling all night long. Let me just throw you to the ground in a second. The struggle wasn't for the angel. The struggle was for Jacob to get to the point where he could say yes. And the minute he said yes, he was blessed. He was renamed Israel, which there's lots of different interpretations for the name Israel. The one that I love is triumphant in God. I would say triumphant as God. That in that moment of his claiming his divinity, right? In that moment of letting go, paradoxically, of letting go of the struggle and surrendering is when he gained the dominion and the awareness of who and what he truly is. And that's why he's then able to meet his brother and they are reconciled. That is why, without that shift, without that transformation within Jacob, there would have been no reconciliation. It was the work of that nocturnal struggle. The struggle is part of the process. The struggle is part of the process. There is this flow of life. Eric Butterworth talks about it so beautifully. There is this flow of life, and it is always seeking to express through us more fully, more powerfully, and it is part of our human understanding to struggle with that expansion. It is part of our human understanding to struggle with how we are going to grow, how we are going to become larger expressions of this beautiful magnificence that we are. So can you trust your struggle? Can you look at the struggle within you as not being against you? Because there is nothing against you. That the struggle itself is actually for you. It is for you to be able to come to the point of surrender. Whenever you get to the point of surrender, dominion is yours. However long that takes you is however long that takes you. So can we hold ourselves in compassion? Can we hold ourselves gently as we wait for the dawn in our consciousness, for that light to illuminate? And where do we find that inspiration, that light? We come here. This is how we do this, right? We come together, we come to classes, we pray, we meditate, we celebrate, we serve. All of these are opportunities for the dawn to illuminate within ourselves the truth of who we are, that we may surrender into our greatest yet to be. So I want to read you a quote, which I love, by Rachel Naomi Remen. This struggle of the personality to become transparent to the soul. Isn't that awesome? The struggle of the personality to to become transparent to the soul. I just think that describes perfectly what I've been speaking to today. Is a struggle to become free from illusion, to grow in wisdom. This is not usually a graceful or deliberate process. We stumble forward, often in the dark, using everything to become more of who we are. It is an effort worthy of our patience, our support, our compassion, and our attention. Effort worthy of our patience, support, compassion, and attention. So can you trust your struggle? Can you truly trust that it is all working for you? And that all that struggle is there is for you to get to the point where you will say yes. One step, one crack in our armor of maintaining the status quo of our life is all that the divine needs within us, as us, to show up, and then we are renamed. We are renamed, and when we are renamed, it means that we are moving through the world in an entirely different consciousness. We are seeing and engaging with life from a completely different perspective. This is what we're here to be and to do. So trust your struggle, trust it's for your good. Be vulnerable. Be willing to be vulnerable. And be compassionate with yourself. Because when we leap into what seems to be a chasm, when we take that leap, we literally are carried on the wings of angels. The angels that are the truth of our life. We are supported and we are sustained. So let's take all of this into meditation. Whatever got stirred up for you. See the dream. of what is calling you, of what it is yours to demand, the blessing that you wish to become. And I'm going to invite you to really feel into the struggle, wherever that struggle lives for you, if it's tension, if it's wherever that is, just feel into that struggle. Let it be fully present as you right now tense yourself up, all the energy required to maintain this struggle. And dawn is approaching. Are you ready to move closer to the vision? To surrender into what is calling you? Are you ready to trust the reason you have been struggling? To see the bigger picture of your life and what is possible? How can you soften into that? Where can you be more open, less rigid, less fearful? Where can you be more vulnerable? And we'll take a few minutes in the silence as I invite you to just sit with that tender space. Allowing yourself to see resources there to support you. Allowing yourself to see how held you truly are.